Chapter 1. My nemesis, Zhou, had been a jade-like virgin for years, but after he got drunk one time, I pushed him down. While he was in a daze, I smugly lifted his chin. Still holding out? If you are, I'm leaving. He chuckled, flipped over, and pinned me beneath him, his eyes completely clear of any drunkenness. Now that I've got you, why the hell would I hold out? I ran into Zhou again at a gathering of second-generation rich kids in the capital. Deafening music pulsed as couples writhed around. Guys were holding on to internet celebrities. Girls were clinging to young male models. He and I were the only ones alone, staring at each other from across the room. This was the third time I'd run into him this month. Ever since he returned from abroad, we'd been bumping into each other frequently. Mostly at bidding events and business dinners, occasionally at friend gatherings like this one. Zhou, dressed in a tailored suit, sat in the VIP booth. His devastatingly handsome face held its usual aloofness. He seemed out of place in a noisy environment. But that didn't affect his popularity with the ladies. Pretty young things in tight skirts kept approaching him one after another. Of course, they all left disappointed. He was known as the Ice King of the capital. It would be a miracle if anyone could charm him. After another pretty girl slunk away, Zhou looked up at me, a hint of provocation in his dark, peach blossom eyes. Looking dapper, aren't you? I swirled the ice in my glass, crunching on a cube. Come on, girl, let's go party. Who are you glaring at with such hatred? Lu Chang, draped over a skinny, pretty boy, sauntered over, a cheerful smile on her face. Who else? I snorted. Seeing him reminds me of the 100 million I lost. It's infuriating. Last week, we were bidding for a food street project. I'd been working on it for months and was sure I'd win. Who knew that Zhou would snatch it away? Seriously, his family runs 5-star hotels. Why was he stealing a project meant for my chain restaurant business? Lu Chang rolled her sparkling cat-like eyes, glanced at Zhou, and sat down beside me, taking my arm. I heard about your bidding war. You guys are old classmates. He could have gone easy on our dear Xiaoxiao. Don't be mad, sweetie. I'll find some guys to beat him up for you. Lu Chang chattered, her bright red lips moving rapidly. I snorted with laughter. Forget it. You two are in the same company. If you dare touch him, your dad will break your legs first. Lu's family used to be in the hotel business too, but they were recently acquired by Zhou's family and became a subsidiary. My heart belongs to you, Xiaoxiao. Even if my body is stuck in the enemy camp, I'd do anything for you. Oh, right, Xiaoxiao. Is your mom still nagging you about marriage? Somehow, Lu Chang brought up this sore subject. My dear best friend, always hitting where it hurts. Yes, she even forced me to go on a blind date a few days ago. I said, devoid of all hope. Jiang Xiaoxiao, the sole heir of the Jiang family. Fresh out of graduation, I was forced to become a superwoman entrepreneur, busy as an octopus every day. Where would I find the time for romance? Hey, Xiaoxiao, I'll teach you a trick, Lu Chang said, a mysterious smile on her face. What? I leaned in involuntarily. At our parents' age, they're not really pushing for marriage. They just want to play with a grandchild. I pondered, and she had a point. My parents doted on me and never planned to use me as a tool for a business marriage. And recently, the daily videos my mom posted in the family group chat seemed to all feature cute babies. So, I asked, so just have one? Problem solved. Me, myself, have one? I pointed at myself, bewildered. Seriously? But could I apply to a sperm bank? As I was considering the feasibility, Lu Chang nudged me hard. Apply for what? Just find a guy to do it. Me. Girl, you're a wild one. Such bold words. Baby, have some fruit. The pretty boy gently fed a piece of orange to Lu Chang. Lu Chang took the opportunity to lean into him and grope him. Not bad. I observed the couple flirting in front of me. Baby, there's a better one over there. She pointed to Zhou, who was being plied with drinks by a group of their former Playboy friends. These guys were all well-known young masters in the capital, but standing next to Zhou, they paled in comparison in terms of looks and family background. He's definitely going to get drunk tonight. Then you could just go and pounce on him. Looking at his broad shoulders, narrow waist, and long legs, I blushed but stubbornly refused. Me, Jiang Xiaoxiao, pounce on him? Wouldn't it be better for me to find a male model like you? Me pounce on him? Sister, I'm not a male model. I'm President Lu's personal assistant. The pretty boy looked at me seriously, his eyes sparkling. Right? I don't mess around with random people. Lu Chong stroked the pretty boy's face, a loving smile on her face. I silently gave her a thumbs up. Okay, you win. Xiao Xiao. Lu Chong suddenly adopted a ghostly tone. 100 million. Don't you want revenge? This is killing two birds with one stone. How perfect. My body jolted. Right? That damn Zhou Bin stole $100 million project from me. If I didn't get something back from him, wouldn't I, Jiang Xiaoxiao, have lived in vain? That boy had been a virgin since high school, always giving girls who were interested in him the cold shoulder. He'd been holding out until now, who knows for whom. Thinking about it, I felt a pang of jealousy. If I were the one to take his virginity, and then have a little mini-me that looked just like him, holding him in my arms, stroking his head, pinching his cheeks, and cuddling him. Haha, what a beautiful picture. I raised an eyebrow. Fine, I'll pounce. Chapter 2. The party dispersed, and Zhou Bin, as expected, was slumped over the table, drunk. Lu Chong and her little assistant, one on each side, carried Zhou Bin into the presidential suite of a nearby hotel. Don't worry, girl. It's my own hotel. Do whatever you want. Lu Chong tossed those words at me, then swayed her hips and left arm in arm with her assistant. I looked at Zhou Bin, lying motionless on the bed, drunk and swallowed. Although I had talked tough, in reality, he and I were both equally inexperienced. I had a boyfriend in college, but we broke up quickly. The furthest we went was the step right before kissing. I turned and went to the bar, opening a bottle of champagne. After gulping down more than half, the alcohol hit me, and I finally felt a bit of courage. For revenge, for freedom, I, Jiang Xiaoxiao, will go all out. I pulled his tie loose, unbuttoned his shirt, and straddled him. In my mind, I replayed those few adult films Lu Chong had forced me to watch. Then, I clumsily placed light kisses on his thin lips, his Adam's apple, and his chest. Zhou Bin was awakened by my kisses. He looked at me with blurry, drunken eyes, seemingly wanting to say something. Panicked, I closed my eyes and leaned in, sealing his lips with mine. His lips were soft, with a hint of sweet red wine, making me want to deepen the kiss. After kissing for a long time, we separated. Looking at his hazy eyes and moist lips, I triumphantly lifted his chin. Young Master Zhou, after all these years of abstinence, are you still holding out? If you are, I'm leaving. Although he was still drunk, being looked at by him like that, I still felt a little timid. I needed an excuse to leave. Teasing him was enough. If something really happened between us, and he remembered it was me tomorrow, wouldn't he come after me with a knife? Just as I finished speaking, I felt an indescribable change in the place where I was sitting. Just as I was about to flee, blushing furiously, he flipped over and pinned me beneath him. Now that I have you, why the hell would I hold out? Zhou Bin whispered in my ear, chuckling softly. What? I looked at his handsome face, so close to mine, in astonishment. My alcohol-addled brain couldn't quite process it. I froze for a moment, then realized with even greater shock. There wasn't a trace of drunkenness left in his eyes. Zhou Bin, you. And this time, he was the one who silenced me with a kiss. Not long after, tears of regret welled up in my eyes. That bastard Zhou Bin. Oh, it really fucking hurts. Chapter 3. When I woke up, I was lying in Zhou Bin's arms. Thinking back to last night's madness, I had to admit, the battle was fierce. Sigh, beauty is truly misleading. I touched my face, a perfectly good block of ice. Even I managed to provoke it into such a frenzy. Forget it, the goal's achieved, time to retreat. I quietly picked up my clothes from the floor. Going to leave after you've had your fill? Zhou Bin's low voice sounded from behind me. Immediately after, I was pulled back into the arms of a certain jerk. Enough! Stop it. I raised my hand against his approaching chest. Last night, you were the one who pushed me down. What, President Jiang, isn't planning on taking responsibility. Jobin stared intently at me, his dark eyes full of amusement. I, Jiang Xiaoxiao, am usually sharp-tongued in the business world, but at this moment his gaze made me blush. Buzz, buzz, my phone vibrated. In an instant, it was like I'd grasped a lifeline. I hurriedly turned to answer the call. President Jiang, you haven't arrived at the airport yet? Where are you? Airport? I asked, my voice hoarse when I spoke. Wang Xian sounded a little frantic. Sister, have you forgotten? Today's the grand opening of our first branch in Jiangxing. Don't we have a 9 a.m. flight to attend the opening ceremony? Hey, your voice sounds a little off, a bit hoarse. President Jiang, are you sick? After being tormented by Zhou, been all night, and crying, it would be strange if my voice wasn't hoarse. A few low chuckles came from behind me, followed by a slender hand offering a glass of water. I glared at the certain someone who clearly found this amusing, gulped down a few mouthfuls of water, and my voice returned to normal. It's nothing, I'll head over right away. There's only an hour left before takeoff. Should I have the driver pick you up? No need, there's no time. I'll take President Jiang there. Zhobin suddenly interjected. Wang Xian was probably startled by his sudden baritone voice and didn't dare to speak for a moment. I silently hung up the phone, imagining the employee group chat exploding in a few minutes. Oh God, let the world end. Chapter 4. After Zhobin showed off his driving skills in his Rolls-Royce like a madman, I finally made it to the airport before my flight took off. Keep in touch. Zhobin smiled and waved to me from the gate. I nodded briefly and hurried inside. Even after I boarded the plane, I could still see his figure through the window. It reminded me of the foolish things I did years ago. Only then, it was him on the plane to America, and I waited until he boarded before secretly standing by the waiting area's floor-to-ceiling window. I wonder if he ever saw me? Isait. Chapter 5. 7 years ago, the eve of our high school graduation. Xiaoxiao. Zhobin is flying to the U.S. today. Our whole group is at the airport seeing him off. Why aren't you here yet? Not going. He didn't tell me. I replied sullenly. Actually, I had arrived long ago, but I didn't want to show my face. So I hid in a shop in the departure hall, secretly peeking at them. Zhobin was being surrounded by a group of people as they walked towards the gate. All the guys he was close to were there, along with a few girls with flushed cheeks, looking at him with reluctance. Didn't Zhobin say it in the group chat? You still want him to invite you personally? Hurry up, come on. Let me tell you. Several of the school's prettiest girls are lining up for a last hug with him. Let them hug, whatever. I curled my lip and hung up the phone, but my eyes remained fixed on him. It was as if I could burn holes in him with my stare if he dared to hug any of them. In the end, Zhobin only hugged the guys and ignored the longing looks from the girls. As he passed through the gate, I saw him look back. The young man's features were picturesque, tinged with a faint melancholy. He didn't look at anyone in particular, just glanced at the departure hall, then quickly turned his head and strode inside. After everyone seeing him off had dispersed, I crept over to the floor-to-ceiling window and stayed there, looking out for a long time. Chapter 6. After getting off the plane and rushing to the restaurant, there were only a few minutes left before the opening ceremony. Because of the rush, I didn't have time to go home and change. Wearing the little black dress from last night's party was clearly inappropriate. So I asked Wang Xian to find me a blazer from the lobby manager and borrowed a makeup kit from a waitress to put on some light makeup. I managed to get through the ribbon-cutting ceremony just fine. After the ceremony, guests started coming into the restaurant. My entire itinerary for the next few days was in Jiangxing, so I wasn't in a hurry to leave. I decided to stay and observe the local customers' reactions to our food. Baby, I want Beijing cuisine. Let's eat here today. A stylishly dressed couple walked towards me. The woman, her face full of youthful plumpness, walked ahead with her head held high, her stiletto heels clicking on the floor. The man trailed behind her, meekly carrying several LV and Hermes shopping bags. Good afternoon, welcome. The man looked up. Xiaoxiao. Zhao Feiyu. I hadn't expected to run into him here after several years since graduation. Baby, who is she? A former classmate. Before Zhao Feiyu could finish his vague answer, the woman suddenly remembered something. her eyes full of mockery. Oh, I remember now. Isn't this your dishwasher ex-girlfriend? Wow, you've been promoted to lobby manager in a few years? How impressive. I snorted. I also remembered her. She was the rich girl who stole Zhao Feiyu from me back then. After I got accepted into university in Modu, my tiger dad cut off my living expenses, claiming I was already 18. He then subtly forced me to work at his branch in Modu, starting as a dishwasher. That's where I met Zhao Feiyu, the poor, handsome student. We were both freshmen at the same university, and we had a lot to talk about while washing dishes together. Later, when we ran into each other at school, we would greet each other and chat. Gradually, he started waiting for me downstairs at my dorm. Sometimes he waited to go to work with me. Sometimes he brought me food from the cafeteria. Finally, at the end of our freshman year, he used his hard-earned wages to buy me a bouquet of roses and confessed his feelings. They were the most ordinary red roses, 9 in total. I froze for a moment, then tearfully accepted. At the time, I thought I had found true love. But in reality, that love was incredibly fragile. Not long after Zhao Feiyu and I started dating, a girl named Shui Danny started aggressively pursuing him in her Porsche. She hounded him relentlessly and declared that she would give him 100,000 yuan if he broke up with me. 100,000 yuan? I thought it was rather funny when I heard about it. But Zhao Feiyu actually broke up with me for that money. Chapter 7. Danny, don't talk nonsense. Zhao Feiyu freed a hand to pull her. She flung it away. What can I say? Why are you still protecting her? Can't forget your old flame. Huh? No, baby, it's been years. Isn't this just a coincidence? Zhao Feiyu glanced at me awkwardly, pulling her hand and coaxing her. Shui Danny rolled her eyes at him. If I hadn't taken a fancy to you back then, you'd be just like her today. Yes, 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 darling. Let's not make a scene. I chuckled softly. How could it be the same? People were coming and going at the door, and I didn't bother to tangle with them. You too are blocking the way. Eat if you want, otherwise get lost. Get lost? Who are you telling to get lost? What kind of attitude is that? I'm going to complain about you. Shui Danny snarled at me, and Zhao Feiyu quickly wrapped his arms around her waist. I've booked all the remaining seats. Idlers don't block the entrance. Zhou Bin unexpectedly appeared at the entrance of my shop with his long strides. The moment he stepped in, he bumped Zhao Feiyu and Shui Danny aside. You fucking. Her eyes were fixed on Zhou Bin. So handsome. Chapter 8. Shui Danny was finally dragged away, reluctantly, by Zhao Feiyu. I stared at Zhou Bin in surprise, not knowing what to say. Why did you come to Jiangxing too? He had just seen me off at the airport a few hours ago. Just remembered I have a business dinner tonight. He said it so casually that I couldn't tell if it was true or not. It wasn't that I doubted the existence of the dinner. If he said there was one, then there must be one. What I couldn't figure out was whether he was using it as an excuse to see me or if he had genuinely just remembered it. Please come in, Mr. Zhou. It's our grand opening, so everything is 20% off. Order whatever you like. I led him to an empty table by the window. What? With my relationship with Mr. Jiang, I can't even get a private room. Zhou Bin stretched out his long legs, his black leather shoes bumping against my heels. It's precisely because of our good relationship that I've reserved the best view for you. I pulled my feet back slightly, smiling at him. Oh, so you want me to enjoy the view? Or am I the view you're using to attract customers? Zhou Bin propped his chin on his hand. His eyes narrowed slightly. Outside the window, a few girls giggled and peeked at him as he walked past, their faces quickly flushing red as they entered the restaurant. How could that be? Mr. Zhou, you're overthinking it. He caught me. All right then. He hooked his lips into a thin smile. I'll have some oysters. I had a busy night last night, and I'm feeling a bit depleted. I need to replenish myself. I almost spat out my tea. Chapter 9. Afraid he'd say something he shouldn't, I ended up inviting Zhou Bin, that guy, into the private room upstairs. What are President Zhang's plans for the evening? He asked, raising an eyebrow at me after elegantly finishing a baked oyster with cheese. I thought for a moment. I seem to have a business dinner as well. Could it be the same one he was attending? I quickly messaged Wang Xin on Ding Talk to confirm. Is it the one at the Shangri-La? Zhou asked lazily, glancing sideways at my phone. Yes, President Jiang, 7 p.m. at the Shangri-La on Lijiang Road. Wang Xian's timely reply came. Zhou looked up and smiled. Let's go together. No, I'm canceling. I want to sleep. I snapped back. Last night's activities left me with little sleep and my back still ached. I needed to catch up on some serious shut-eye. President Jiang. Zhou sat up straight, his expression serious. I have reliable information that they're planning to build an international medical center in the western suburbs. My eyes lit up instantly. Where exactly? Has it been confirmed? An international medical center was a huge project. The surrounding restaurants would have massive potential. It's currently in progress, not yet public. Is President Jiang interested? So about tonight's dinner. Let's go together. I gritted my teeth. Chapter 10. The Jiangxing business banquet this time was quite grand, with all the prominent figures of the Jiangxing business circle present. Our first new store just opened in Jiangxing, and we plan to open several more here, so we need this opportunity to build good relationships in Jiangxing. Zhou and I walked into the banquet hall side by side. He naturally took my hand and placed it on his arm. I glared at him, but before I could pull my hand back, the president of the Jiangxing Chamber of Commerce walked over amiably. Mr. Zhou, long time no see. What brings you here in person tonight? I happen to have some business here. How rare. And this is my girlfriend, Jiang Xiaoxiao, vice president of Jiang Group. I looked at him in surprise, my heart skipping a beat. Oh, Ms. Jiang, I've heard that you're not only highly capable, but also a great beauty. Seeing you today, the rumors are true. Mr. Zhou has excellent taste. You flatter me. Our Jiang Group is new here, so we need your support. After dealing with the Chamber of Commerce president, I secretly pinched Zhou. What do you mean by that? Exactly what I said. Zhou held my restless hand in his, raising his glass to another acquaintance. He didn't look at me, but the corners of his eyes and brows were filled with uncontainable amusement. Exactly what he said. Does that mean he wants me to be his girlfriend now? Where were you 7 years ago when? I glared at him angrily and pinched the flesh of his palm with my freshly manicured nails. Zhou tolerated it well. He held my hand firmly, leading me around the banquet hall, socializing. Chapter 11. Finally catching a moment when he went to the restroom, I hurried to the drinks area and grabbed a glass of champagne to calm my nerves. Xiao, a male voice suddenly sounded behind me. I turned around and saw Zhao Feiyu standing there in a suit. Xiao, what a coincidence. I've run into you again. Zhao Feiyu adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses and gave me a gentle smile. Coincidence? I don't think so. For someone I didn't want to see again, it should be what bad luck. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Excuse me. Xiao. Zhao Feiyu blocked my way. I was out of line at lunch. I embarrassed you. I apologize. I wasn't embarrassed. Shue Danny was, I said coldly. Shue Danny had been dragged away by Zhao Feiyu like a mad dog, with no semblance of composure. Zhao Feiyu choked on my words, gave an awkward laugh, and leaned closer to whisper. Xiao, I had no choice but to leave you back then. I needed money too much. Later, I heard from his roommate that he bought the Apple trifecta the next day. Actually, I don't love her. I've been thinking about you all these years. That sounded even more ridiculous. When we broke up, he clearly said, Xiao, let's break up. I don't love you. Looking at Zhao Feiyu, I felt exhausted. Zhao Feiyu, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. There's no need to bring up the past. To shake him off, I walked towards the balcony of the banquet hall. But Zhao Feiyu followed closely. Xiao, listen to me, Xiao. Were you with Mr. Zhou from Beijing just now? I didn't recognize him at lunch. Could you introduce me? To be honest, I'm in the construction business now. I heard Mr. Zhou plans to build another 5-star hotel in Jiangxing. If you help me connect with him, and I get this project, I'll give you this much commission. Zhao Feiyu held up a 5 to me. 50,000? I couldn't help but laugh. Zhao Feiyu, you gotta be kidding. A 5-star hotel, a project worth hundreds of millions, and you're offering me 50,000 commission? Treating me like a dog. Even for previous business dealings with the company, if we could secure such a deal, the commission would start at hundreds of thousands. Did he think I didn't understand these things? I shook my head and turned to leave. 100,000. How about 100,000? Zhao Feiyu followed me. Xiao, I know it's not easy for you being with someone like him. As long as this project is secured, I'll dump Shui Danny. Come with me, I'll take care of you. I didn't expect Zhao Feiyu to see me this way. He actually thought I was Zhou Bin's mistress. Regardless of whether he would dump Shui Danny or not, I, Jiang Xiaoxiao, have never needed a man to take care of me. Zhao Feiyu, I was just disappointed in you before. Now you disgust me. I said coldly, dismissing him. If you want to talk business, talk to Zhou Bin. I won't help you. Of course, if he uses you, he's blind. Zhao Feiyu grabbed my wrist. Come on, Jiang Xiaoxiao, we're all in it for the money. You're no better than me. Working in a restaurant during the day, accompanying people for drinks at night, putting on an act. Just name your price. Name a price, and I'll beat you to death. Zhou Bin, I don't know when he noticed me here, stepped forward and punched Zhao Feiyu in the face. Mr. Zhou. Mr. Zhou. Please let me explain. I'm Xiaoxiao's classmate. We were just... Ugh. Zhou Bin punched him in the face again. Zhao Feiyu, beaten black and blue, covered his missing tooth and knelt on the ground. The commotion attracted the attention of many people in the banquet hall, and people gradually gathered around. Mr. Zhou, I was wrong, Mr. Zhou. It was her. She wanted to act as a middleman and asked me for a commission. She asked you for a commission? Zhou Bin raised an eyebrow. How much? 100,000? No, 200,000. As soon as Zhao Feiyu spoke, many people covered their mouths and laughed. The president of the Chamber of Commerce couldn't stand it anymore. Sai Xiao, she's President Jiang. President Jiang of Jiang's restaurant chain. Zhao Feiyu slowly looked at me, frozen like a statue. Zhou Bin kicked Zhao Feiyu to the ground. I'll cover the medical expenses. Mr. President, please take care of him. After saying that, Zhou Bin took my hand and walked out. Chapter 12. After leaving Shangri-La, Zhou Bin held my hand as we strolled along the river. Jiang Xiaoxiao, do you have anything to say to me? About that idiot, for example. You already called him an idiot. What else is there to say? I didn't want to tell him about my failed campus romance from years ago. I was afraid he'd laugh himself to death. But Zhou Bin didn't want to drop the subject. He sounded like your ex. What was so good about him? Why did you go for him back then? Zhou Bin asked casually. Nothing much, just a bit better than someone. He at least gave me roses. I sniffled. The evening breeze by the river was a bit chilly, and my strapless tight dress wasn't enough. Zhou Bin took off his suit jacket and draped it over me. While helping me adjust the collar, he lowered his eyes and asked in a low voice. Someone who is someone? I looked at his handsome face as he drew closer. His high-bridged nose, his pale pink lips. I couldn't help but swallow. Someone is just someone. Zhou Bin raised his eyes. His features were incredibly beautiful, with dark, long eyebrows and peach blossom eyes that, when not smiling, held a certain sharpness. The one you gave the stars to? He asked, frowning. Oh? It took me a while to realize what he was referring to. 7 years ago, on the eve of someone's birthday, I foolishly folded 999 little stars for him. Chapter 13. Forget it, it's all in the past. Just pretend I didn't ask. Zhou Bin turned his head, gazing distantly at the river's surface, shimmering with neon lights. I was so choked up I almost lost my breath. I was the one who hadn't received a reply after sending those stars, wasn't I? Why was young Master Zhou acting like a sulky little wife? How was it in the past? Do you think it was easy for me to fold so many stars? I questioned him, feeling quite upset. Zhou Bin frowned, staring intently at me, his eyes seemingly turbulent. After a moment, he gave a self-deprecating chuckle. Is that person so unforgettable to you? Then what about last night? What did I mean to you? Jiang Xiaoxiao, am I really just a tool for you to have a baby? What person? His questions had been strange from the beginning. Now I suddenly realized that there seemed to be a huge misunderstanding between us. No, Zhou Bin. But before I could ask, he suddenly grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. His face buried in my neck, his low and deep voice sounded in my ear. Jiang Xiaoxiao, I've waited for you for 7 years. Give me a chance. Zhou Bin listened to me. I pushed him anxiously. But the harder I pushed, the tighter he held me, as if trying to embed me into his body. Jiang Xiaoxiao, you already pushed me down last night, so I'm not letting go this time. You're not letting go, are you? I gritted my teeth and lightly bit his earlobe. He had lingered on my ear last night, driving me wild. Today, it was his turn to experience this feeling. Sure enough, he shuddered as if electrocuted and abruptly released his arms. Can you listen to me properly now? I raised an eyebrow, watching his face quickly turn red. The birthday present I gave you in our senior year. I coughed unnaturally. Did you ever open it? Jobin looked bewildered. Open it? Wasn't it a slime plushie? Of course, it wasn't an ordinary plushie. It was a storage doll. I face-bombed. Why would I give you a random plushie? Didn't you see the zipper on its back? Zhou Bin's expression instantly crumbled. Chapter 14. At 16 or 17, the more you care about someone, the deeper you bury them in your heart. Zhou Bin was that kind of existence for me. We'd known each other since elementary school, but back then we weren't exactly childhood sweethearts, just ordinary classmates. That is, until we ended up at the same high school. I excelled in my studies and became class president. He became rebellious, the biggest headache for our teachers. Not long after the start of our first year, he showed up with red-tipped, layered hair, and 3 black studs in one ear. His look was incredibly handsome, causing a chorus of screams from the girls. But he became my biggest problem as class president. He was repeatedly called to the office, but refused to change. When his parents were called, it was always his father's secretary who showed up. Our exasperated homeroom teacher, having tried everything, finally dumped the responsibility of making him remove his earrings and dye his hair back onto me. What choice did I have? I just had to chase him everywhere. Jobin, the school doesn't allow dyed hair. Dye it back. Why haven't you taken out your earrings yet? If you don't do it yourself, I'll do it for you. Jobin mostly ignored me. Sometimes, when I annoyed him enough, he'd retort, Jiang Xiaoxiao, what's it to you? Buzz off. But I wouldn't give up. Jiang Xiaoxiao, never give up. A few days later, I decided to double my efforts. Not only did I chase him relentlessly at school, I also made sure he had nowhere to escape after school. Like a shadow, I followed him, nagging. Zhou Bin, when are you finally going to dye your hair back? Seriously, I think you looked better before. This style is a bit girly. Before I could finish, I bumped into his back. Without realizing it, I'd followed him into a narrow alley where a few thugs were blocking the way. We've been watching you for a few days, kid. We don't want any trouble, just to borrow some money. The leader of the thugs walked towards us menacingly. 2 more thugs blocked the way behind us. This was the first time I'd encountered something like this. I panicked and instinctively grabbed Zhou Bin's sleeve. Zhou Bin seemed much calmer than I was. He glanced at my hand and said coldly, Isn't it just money? I've never lacked money. We can talk, but let her go first. I hadn't expected him to be so chivalrous in this situation. No can do. If we let your little girlfriend go, she'll call for help. Just hand over the money, and we'll leave you both alone. The leader reached out his hand towards Zhou Bin, his eyes lingering on me. Zhou Bin frowned and shielded me behind him. Screw you. He suddenly grabbed the leader and threw him over his shoulder. The other thugs froze for a second before rushing him with sticks. Run! Zhou Bin shoved me away in the chaos. Surrounded by 5 or 6 thugs, he took several blows. I should have listened to him and run, but my feet were rooted to the ground. Watching him being beaten, I couldn't move. Suddenly, I remembered the pepper spray in my backpack. With trembling hands, I pulled it out and sprayed it wildly at the thugs. Caught off guard by the intense burning, they covered their eyes and scattered. Run! Zhou Bin grabbed my hand tightly. That evening, I ran with Zhou Bin through the narrow alleys. I'd never run so fast, not even during the 800-meter test for the high school entrance exam. Thankfully, we escaped unharmed. Chapter 15. The next day at school, my legs felt like lead. I dragged myself to the classroom door and bumped into Zhou Bin. He had his bag slung over one shoulder, hands in his pockets, and a listless look in his eyes. The buzz cut was the same buzz cut, but his hair was back to its original color. The black earrings were gone, leaving only 3 small holes. Passing girls still shrieked. There's no helping it. The guy can be salty or sweet, rebellious or cute, but always handsome. From that day on, our relationship became subtle. On the surface, we still seemed at odds. I would often nag him for not handing in homework, sleeping in class, playing with his phone, and so on. He still mostly ignored me, occasionally raising an eyebrow to retort. But we both understood one thing. She wasn't that annoying. Chapter 16. When I truly started liking him is a little hard to pinpoint. Maybe it was the time he took the teetering stack of workbooks from my arms and carried them all the way to the teacher's office. Maybe it was the time I started my period and stained my pants, and I sat frozen in the classroom, afraid to get up until he suddenly tossed his jacket into my lap. Maybe it was the time I turned around and he happened to look up, our eyes meeting across several rows of desks. Maybe it was the time he made a three-pointer during a basketball game, and amidst the wave-like cheers, his eyes found mine. Maybe, in short, I fell for him unconsciously, but his attitude towards girls has always been one of keeping his distance. Anyone who dared to approach him would be met with an icy reception. So, although many girls in our class liked him, they only admired him from afar, not daring to get closer. Chapter 17. During my senior year of high school, most of my classmates at our private school applied to universities abroad. Zhou was no exception. Not me, though. My dad insisted I stay in the country. He firmly believed that domestic education was more grounded. And in our restaurant business, being grounded was key. It turns out my dad was incredibly wise, especially having me wash dishes from my freshman year of college. But back then, I didn't think so. I was filled with anxiety, uncertainty, and melancholy. The boy I'd had a crush on for years was about to leave the country, and I still hadn't figured out how to confess my feelings. Finally, I racked my brains and came up with what I thought was a very appropriate, but actually very silly, girly idea: folding paper stars for him. I used the few breaks I had during my senior year to frantically fold stars. One day during lunch break, I was caught red-handed by Lu Chong while folding stars. She mimicked our class advisor's soprano voice, shrieking, "Jiang Xiaoxiao, what are you doing? Don't you know the college entrance exam is in just over 100 days?" I quickly put down the stars and tried to cover her loud mouth. "Chong, why are you yelling?" But Lu Chong was too quick. With a smooth turn, she dodged me and stood across the table, relentlessly pursuing the matter. "Oh, afraid someone will find out? What are all these little stars for? Confess. Are you secretly crushing on someone behind my back?" I subconsciously glanced at Zhou in the back row. Seeing him asleep, I breathed a sigh of relief. No, my one true love is you." "Really? Then these stars are all mine." Lu Chong grabbed a handful of stars while I wasn't looking. "You're already so beautiful. Don't be so greedy." I quickly snatched them back. "So, you do have someone in your heart. My life is so hard." "Why?" Yes. There's someone in my heart, and there's no room for you. Class is about to start. Give them back." After half a month of busy work, I finally finished folding 999 paper stars. Then, along with a confession letter, on his birthday, I nervously placed them in his hands. Chapter 18. Ugh, so it wasn't my fault back then. Zhou hurriedly left after dropping me off at the hotel. I sprawled on the hotel bed, trying to comfort myself. Back then, who would dare to confess to him directly? Being coldly rejected by him in front of everyone at his birthday party would have been so humiliating. So I folded paper stars and put a confession letter inside a slime. Afterwards, I was constantly waiting anxiously, filled with anticipation one moment and despair the next. My mood was like a roller coaster, and it completely slipped my mind to remind him to open it when he got home. Early the next morning, Lu Chang's call woke me up. Xiao. Oh my God, huge news. Zhou received a confession." "Oh?" I was still half asleep. "How what?" "Go look at his moments. A bunch of paper stars and a confession letter." But why does the style look like it's from a minor? I suddenly understood what Lu Chong was talking about. I opened his moments and instantly felt so embarrassed I wanted to dig myself at Disney World. No wonder he left so quickly last night. He rushed home. Not only did he dump out all the stars I gave him back then, but he also arranged them into a heart shape, placing my confession letter right in the middle. The caption, "Best gift." What the hell does Jobin mean? Best gift? I'll kill him. Xiao. What happened between you two that night? Did it work out? It worked out, I replied lazily. Worked out. Ah. Lu Chong processed my words for a moment, then hurriedly switched to comfort mode. Xiao, don't be sad. Even if it worked out, we're not losing out. It's my fault. I shouldn't have agreed to help him that day. I sat up abruptly. Help him with what? It's just that day. Actually, Jobin asked me to sound you out to see if you had any feelings for him. Lu Chong stammered out the general idea. I covered my head and fell back onto the bed. I thought someone was a pure and innocent soul, but it turns out he had been plotting all along. Jobin, you dog. Xiao. Say something. Don't do anything rash, you. Shut up, sis. Look closely. Don't those stars look familiar? After a moment of silence, Lu Chong suddenly erupted in a series of shrieks over the phone. Chapter 19. A few days later, I returned to the capital. As soon as I opened the office door, I was stunned by a room full of roses. Wang Exen grinned mischievously as she brought me coffee. Mr. Jiang, these flowers are all from Mr. Zhou. He asked me a couple of days ago when you would be back, and I thought, since he's not an outsider, I told him your itinerary. Wang Exen, come here. I glared at her helplessly. Who told you he's not an outsider? Does he pay your salary? He filled my office with flowers. He wants everyone in the company to know, doesn't he? Exactly. Everyone must know. I like things to be fair, just and open. Unlike some people, always hiding things, making me wait 7 years for nothing. I turned my head, and Wang Exen had already slipped away. Jobin was leaning against the doorframe in front of me. He looked at me meaningfully, his dark eyes like little hooks, hooking me. My heart raced, and my face flushed. You didn't look yourself, so blame me. Jobin hooked his lips and walked in, casually closing the door behind him. He stretched out his long arm and pulled me into his embrace. Jiang Xiaoxiao, 999 roses. This is my reply to your confession. How are you going to compensate me for the 7 years I waited? Back then, I wrote in the letter, if you like me too, send me a bouquet of roses. But until he left, I never received any roses. So when Zhao Feiyu presented a bouquet of roses to me, I burst into tears. I'm not the only one who waited 7 years. I tugged on his tie and raised an eyebrow at him. If you like me so much, why didn't you say so back then? You, and you're pretending. You, and you're being so reserved. Jobin looked at me for a long time, then turned his head and coughed twice. You said, you don't like people who are proactive. You want to pursue the person you like yourself. Me? When did I say that? When did this happen? Why don't I remember? New Year's Day in our first year of high school. You were playing truth or dare with a group of girls, and I happened to hear. As he spoke, his ears turned red. New Year's Day in our first year of high school? I thought back, it seemed like there was such a thing. But at that time, I was just joking with a few girls, half-heartedly saying something casually. Come on, your Zhou family runs 5-star hotels. Why are you trying to steal my chain restaurant business? Suddenly, it was like I discovered a new continent, and I raised an eyebrow at him with a smile. I didn't realize it, Mr. Zhou. You liked me back then? It turns out that when we were 16 or 17, I wasn't the only one hiding someone in my heart. Jobin wrapped his arms around my waist, his eyes darkening. Wrong, Mr. Jiang. Back then, I only liked you. Now it's love. Jobin, this is the office. You. Restrain yourself. Bonus, a little lesson. After being together with Jobin, I thought about the Food Street project again. Baby, can you transfer that Food Street project you snatched to me? I sat on Jobin's lap, wrapped my arms around his neck, my breath warm against his skin. Jobin smiled and pinched my waist. Still thinking about that? That land isn't suitable for a food street at all. I glared at him. Impossible. I've already surveyed it. A large amusement park is being built nearby. Construction just started, but I heard the funding isn't in place due to disagreements among the decision makers. It's likely to be abandoned. I snatched it to prevent you from falling into a trap. Jobin buried his face in my neck, his voice husky. So that's why he insisted on fighting me for it. My heart melted into a puddle. Then what are you going to do now? Isn't it going to be stuck in his hands now? It's fine, I transferred it a while ago. Added 20 million and transferred it to the Xue family in Jiangxing. Xue family? Xue Danny. Yes. Her family just wanted to try their luck in the capital. So I let her try. Certain people should learn a lesson. Jobin chuckled softly and kissed my lips, filling the room with a spring-like atmosphere.